The NFL season has officially come to an end, and with free agency and the draft right around the corner, there's no better time than now to look at one move each NFL team needs to make this offseason. The Arizona Cardinals need to get rid of Kyler Murray. Last year was an ugly year for the Cardinals to say the least, and it just really seems like Kyler's time as starter on this team has come to an end. Some teams that are interested in Kyler include the Browns, Jets, Steelers, and Dolphins, and in terms of trade value, I feel like he could go for maybe a second or third round pick. The Atlanta Falcons need to bolster up their defensive line. The future was looking really bright for this Falcons defense with great rookie years from Jalon Walker and James Pierce Jr., but as you guys all know, James Pierce Jr. got in trouble. We're just going to leave it at that. So now his future in Atlanta is pretty unclear. If the Falcons can get a big interior lineman in the draft, someone like Peter Woods or Caden McDonald, or maybe even go after a guy like DJ Reader in free agency, then I feel like that will go a long way to help a team that was 8th in rushing yards given up last season. The Baltimore Ravens need to give Lamar Jackson some help. With John Harbaugh leaving for the Giants and Todd Monken going to the Browns and bringing the entire Ravens staff with him, I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty going into next season for the Ravens. This team looked like the 0-17 Browns in games that Lamar didn't play, proving how important he really is to this team. Adding some playmakers like maybe George Pickens, Wan'Dale Robinson, or David Njoku could really go a long way in actually getting Lamar the help he needs and would maybe finally be able to get them over the hump and make a deep playoff run. The Buffalo Bills need to get Josh Allen a true wide receiver one. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with this one, but that's just because the Bills really suck at finding Josh Allen actual wide receivers. While some guys like Dalton Kincaid have showed a little bit of promise, other guys on this team are too worried about eating cookies than actually catching passes. If the Bills can somehow leave the draft with either Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, or Mekhi Lemon, then I feel like we probably won't be having the same conversation again next year. The Carolina Panthers need to finally find Brian Burns' replacement. The future is looking pretty bright in Carolina, with several young players like Bryce Young and Ted McMillan really showing flashes of becoming great players in this league. But with that being said, I feel like this team is still really far away from contending, so the best move for them this offseason will be to add some defensive players to try and fill the void left by Brian Burns from that trade a couple years ago. The Chicago Bears need to add some defensive playmakers. Somehow the Bears went 11-6 last year and won a playoff game despite only having a plus 26 point differential and seemingly winning every single game in the final drive. I feel like this team is better than a lot of people give them credit for. Ben Johnson's obviously a super good head coach, and Caleb Williams really came into his own last year. But if this team wants to stay as Kings of the North, then they're going to need to address this defense. Last season, this unit ranked 27th in total yards given up and 22nd in points given up, so not good. I could see them potentially going after Trey Hendrickson in free agency and even trying to pursue Max Crosby if he's made available. Or maybe I could see them drafting a defensive end in the first round, maybe going with David Bailey from Texas Tech or Kendrick Falk from Auburn. But as long as the wizard who taught the Bears how to do all that black magic to help them win all those games last year stays in the team, then they'll be fine. The Cincinnati Bengals need to sign or draft any defensive players. I mean, literally anybody. This one's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, just watch Colson Loveland's touchdown against this team in Week 9 and tell me I'm wrong. At this point, the Bengals defense is so terrible that if their GM, Duke Tobin, even thinks about signing or drafting any offensive players, he should be fired on the spot. The Cleveland Browns need to give their quarterback a competent offense. Shedeur was probably the most pulverizing player in all of football last year, with some handing him lots of praise while others look at his numbers and then completely write him off. I mean, he made the Pro Bowl last year. They can't be that bad, right? I still do believe the Browns need to give Shedeur another chance to prove that he's their guy, and with the current state of this offense, it's basically impossible to evaluate the play of any QB. With the addition of Todd Monken and his new head coach, I could see the Browns going after maybe Tyler Linderbaum or Isaiah Likely just because they're so familiar with his scheme, and then maybe they could draft a receiver or an offensive tackle with one of their 2 first-round picks. The Dallas Cowboys need to keep George Pickens. As long as Jerry Jones is the GM of this team, no player is safe, as we saw with the blockbuster Micah Parsons trade last season. So now rumors are circulating that if the Cowboys aren't able to reach a long-term deal with Pickens, then they'd be willing to shop him for a second-round pick. This makes absolutely no sense in my opinion, as Pickens really solidified himself as a top receiver in this league, and doing this would only hurt the team. Instead, they need to focus on adding players instead of just getting rid of them and using one of the first-round picks they got from Micah Parsons to try and find his replacement. The Denver Broncos need to trade for George Pickens. Now, I know I just said that I don't think the Cowboys should trade George Pickens, but that doesn't mean I think they won't. If the Cowboys do, for whatever reason, make Pickens available, then the Broncos need to jump all over this. The Broncos were arguably the best team in AFC last season, so by adding an elite playmaker like Pickens, it would only put them further ahead of the competition in the rest of the AFC. The Detroit Lions need to revamp their offensive line. The retirement of Frank Ragnow really hurt this team last season, as Graham Glasgow really just wasn't able to fill the void left behind by him. And with Glasgow being a likely cut candidate this offseason, the Lions really need to focus on getting a proven and reliable center to try and replace him. Tyler Linderbaum seems like the obvious fit here, but I really wouldn't mind if the Lions took a chance on a guy like Connor Lew from Auburn or Jake Slaughter in Florida in the draft. The Green Bay Packers just need to get some defensive backs. Trayvon Diggs' time as a Packer lasted about as long as their lead did against the Bears in the playoffs, so it's time for the Packers to add some playmakers to this secondary. Keytron Nix is a decent player, but I still feel like the Packers need to add another guy alongside him to really solidify this unit. I think the Packers should consider going after a guy like Tariq Woolen or Jamel Dean, who are both guys that have proven that they can be starting corners on Super Bowl caliber teams. The Houston Texans need to resurrect rookie CJ Stroud. Unfortunately, every year it seems like we just get further and further away from Stroud's amazing rookie year, and it really seems like this Texans team is just a quarterback away from being true Super Bowl contenders, which makes CJ Stroud's play that much more frustrating. Giving CJ some offensive line help would go a long way, and hopefully returning him to at least somewhat decent play. The Indianapolis Colts need to bring back Danny Dimes. Nobody, and I mean nobody, could have predicted that the Colts were going to go 8-2 to start the season, let alone with Indiana Jones at the helm. But with Jones said to be free agent this offseason, the only thing the Colts need to do is hand this man a blank check and let him write down whatever number he wants. The Colts went 0-5 after Jones went down with a season-ending Achilles injury, proving how important he really is to the success of this team. The Jacksonville Jaguars need to retool their secondary. It was a fun year for the Jags last year, with new head coach Liam Cohen really solidifying himself as one of the best head coaches in the NFL. But the one area that this Jags team really lacked last season was their secondary. With key injuries to players like Travis Hunter right at the beginning of the season, I feel like the key this offseason for the Jags is to add a proven veteran who can kind of mentor Hunter and really unlock the Heisman winner's potential at the defensive back position. The Kansas City Chiefs need to draft Jeremiah Love. The Chiefs need to take a page out of the Black Eyed Peas playbook this year and ask themselves, where is the love? And the answer is in this year's NFL Draft. Love is an extremely exciting prospect and would fit great into an offense that has really struggled to get the run game going ever since the departure of Kareem Hunt all the way back in 2018. Even though Hunt is still on the team, his prime seasons are well behind him, and Love will really provide the explosiveness and big playability that the Chiefs have been missing for years. The Las Vegas Raiders need to draft Fernando Mendoza. This one seems really obvious, but given the Raiders' track record in the draft, don't be surprised if they end up going with someone like Dude Person first overall. Mendoza is by far the best quarterback prospect in this class, with a considerably large gap between him and the second best prospect, Ty Simpson. So all that we ask is that the Raiders don't be the Raiders and make the right pick for the first time in the history of this organization. The Los Angeles Chargers need to improve their offensive line. Many people forget the Chargers actually have two of the best offensive tackles in the whole NFL in Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, probably because they're literally never on the field. If these two can actually stay healthy for a full season, then all the Chargers will need to do is revamp the interior offensive line, and then maybe Captain If can actually live up to the hypothetical situations that we put him in every single season. The Los Angeles Rams need to keep hitting on their draft picks. And obviously I don't mean flirting here, I mean just drafting an absolute stud. The Rams have only picked in the first round one time since 2017, and the player they chose was Jared Verse, who, as you know, won Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2024, and has already proven to be one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Some other notable names drafted by the Rams in those years include Braden Fisk, Blake Corum, Cam Kitchens, Byron Young, Kobe Turner, and Cooper Kupp. Somehow, none of these guys were first-round picks, showing how good the Rams truly are at evaluating talent. This team has already proven that they're real Super Bowl contenders, and with the reigning MVP, Matthew Stafford, coming back for his a bajillionth season, all that's left for the Rams to do is just draft another Pro Bowler. The Miami Dolphins need to find a way to get rid of Tua. It's basically confirmed that Tua Tagovailoa has played his last snap in Miami, but I still feel like I would mention this for the Dolphins, just to stress how urgently this guy needs to go. The only problem is, if the Dolphins are to release Tua, they would take on $99.2 million in dead cap, which would be the most in NFL history. Which means the Dolphins are likely going to have to trade Tua, but the problem with that is that his cap hit is over $55 million for the next 3 years, so it's going to be a real challenge to find a team that's actually willing to take on his contract. The Minnesota Vikings need to find a real quarterback. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, the Vikings are rumored to be looking into bringing a veteran quarterback to bring some competition for JJ McCarthy next season. And the only people who would be happier to see a quarterback change in Minnesota than Justin Jefferson would be the people who selected Justin Jefferson in the first round in fantasy last year. I could see the Vikings going after someone like Malik Willis or Marcus Mariota in free agency in hopes that Kevin O'Connell can work his magic and turn another journeyman quarterback into a Pro Bowler. The New England Patriots need to find some players who are actually willing to fight and die for Drake May. After battling their way to the Super Bowl and conquering dangerous quarterbacks such as Brady Cook, Dylan Gabriel, and Jared Stidham, the Patriots got absolutely stomped. If the Patriots want to beat the fraud allegations next year, they're going to have to bring in some players who are actually willing to fight and die for Drake May, rather than just die like Will Campbell was doing the whole Super Bowl. The New Orleans Saints need to let Tyler Shugg cook. Somehow, even after losing 2 of their 3 starting wide receivers in Raheem Shaheed and Brandon Cooks, the Saints actually looked kind of good with Tyler Shugg at quarterback. Adding another dynamic playmaker to pair alongside Chris Olave could potentially set this team up to make a run for the pathetic joke of a division that is the NFC South. With the Saints holding the 9th overall pick in the draft, they should be able to get at least one of the big 3 receivers in this class. But if they decide to go the free agent route, then names like Wan'Dale Robinson or Alec Pierce could be great additions in this offense. The New York Giants need to pray that their players actually stay healthy. If I could describe the Giants season from last year in one word, it would probably be fun. Prior to Cam Scadaboo's season-ending ankle injury, this team was actually looking to be somewhat competitive with wins over the Chargers and the Eagles. But as we know, all good things must come to an end, and this team ended the season going 2-9 with disastrous losses to the Broncos and the Lions. With John Harbaugh coming in to be this team's next head coach and Malik Neighbors returning from his season-ending ACL injury, the only thing that's getting in the way of this team is injuries. The New York Jets need to figure out their quarterback situation. As of right now, absolutely nobody knows who the Jets quarterback is going to be next season. Justin Fields is probably going to get cut, and based off the way Brady Cook played last season, I would be shocked if they named him the starter. For almost the whole season, Dante Moore seemed like the obvious pick for this team, until he decided that going back to college and potentially losing out on millions of dollars was still better than playing quarterback for the Jets. I could still see the Jets going the rookie QB route and taking someone like Ty Simpson or maybe even Carson Beck in the later rounds, but what's more realistic is that this team goes after a guy in free agency like Malik Willis, or maybe even tries to trade for a guy like Kyler or Tua. The Philadelphia Eagles need to get some players who can actually catch the ball. With A.J. Brown likely playing his last down as an Eagle and Dallas Goedert said to be an unrestricted free agent, the Eagles are going to need some receiving help. Now don't get me wrong, I think Devontae Smith is a great player, but he doesn't strike me as the true wideout X receiver that is really needed to carry a receiving core. If the Eagles don't plan on bringing back Dallas Goedert, I could see them going after someone like David Njoku or maybe even Travis Kelce. And as far as receivers go, I feel like someone like Mike Evans or even Tyreek Hill would be great fits in Nick Sirianni's offense. The Pittsburgh Steelers also need to find some real wide receivers. The Steelers' wide receiver depth chart looks pretty rough right now, with a considerably large gap between DK Metcalf and the rest of the group. So I think the key for the Steelers here is just to add some depth wide receiver pieces who will hopefully make the job easier for whoever is going to be playing quarterback. The San Francisco 49ers need to hire the surgeon who worked on Aaron Rodgers' Achilles. The poor 49ers have been absolutely decimated with injuries over the last couple years, and it's gotten so bad to the point where they had to investigate an electrical substation that was in close proximity to their practice field. I wish I was making that up. If you guys can remember all the way back to 2023 when Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles in the first game of the season, but was somehow ready to come back at the end of the year, if the Niners can get their hands on the surgeons who worked on Rodgers, then maybe they'd be able to keep their players healthy enough to be able to actually roster a 22-man team. The Seattle Seahawks need to bring back their entire team. The Seahawks have $63 million in cap space next season, which is the 6th most in the entire NFL. On paper, that seems great. I mean, the Super Bowl champions have the 6th most money to spend on whatever player they want, until you realize that their entire team is free agents this year. Kenneth Walker, Tariq Woolen, Boye Mafe, John Jones, and Kobe Bryant are all set to hit the market this season, so if the Seahawks want to try and keep this core together, they're going to need to get spending. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers need to learn the Heimlich maneuver so they can stop choking at the end of every season. The Baker Mayfield cycle was in full effect last season, and if you're unfamiliar with what that is, here's the rundown. It all starts when Baker Mayfield plays like shit, then he's criticized by the media, then he develops an underdog mentality, and then he beats an inferior opponent, and finally calls out the media and makes everyone think he's a quarterback one, and then he plays like shit and the cycle repeats. As a Browns fan, I love Baker, so I'm really hoping he's able to overcome the cycle and lead Tampa on the deep playoff run that they've been waiting to go on since Tom Brady left. The Tennessee Titans need to get Cam Ward some real help. The Titans were just straight up ass last year. I'll let Cam Ward tell you himself.
I mean, we keeping a buck right now, we ass.
And although Ward's play was a large reason for why the Titans were so bad last year, he still did show some flashes of being a great quarterback one day. The number one priority for the Titans this offseason will just be to add as much offensive help as possible, and maybe even get a guy whose name we can actually pronounce for once. The Washington Commanders need to fix their defense. We're only 1 year removed from the Commanders' historic NFC Championship run, but with how they played last season, it just seems like it's been so much longer. As long as Jaden Daniels stays healthy, this team is fine. But if they really want to compete in the NFC, they're going to need to look to retool this defense. That can start by replacing some of the aging vets who are likely on their way out, such as Von Miller and Bobby Wagner. And that was one move that every NFL team needs to make this offseason. This was my first video on my new channel, so I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you could, please leave a like and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.